जहां बनते हैं देश के गौरव, इंडिया का एकमात्र ऐसा कोचिंग इंस्टीट्यूट जहां कैडेट्स को ट्रेन किया जाता है आने वाले डिफेंस एग्जाम के अनुसार। अगर आपका भी सपना है भारतीय सेना में शामिल होकर देश की सेवा करने का, तो आज ही ज्वाइन करें त्रिशूल डिफेंस एकेडमी।
Jai Hind Defense Aspirants. Trishul Defense Academy presents Crash Course series on the AFCAT 1 2022 examinations. This is Smriti Dwivedi and we will be studying general studies together with proper revision techniques, with proper learning and hard work. Now score 200 plus easily in the AFCAT examinations. So moving forward. Before moving forward, we will discuss the yesterday's questions. So yesterday I asked that how many Buddhist councils were held and what were the important Buddhist councils and when was the last Buddhist council held. So there were total 6 Buddhist councils and the important ones were 3rd Buddhist council, which was held in Patliputra in 250 BC, and it was under the king Ashoka. Now, as we know, Ashoka was not only an ardent follower of Buddhism, he also helped in a lot in propagating after the war of Kalinga. He was so devoted to the Buddhism that he sent his son Mahendra and daughter Sanghamitra to propagate the religion all over the world. Now, another important Buddhist council was 4th Buddhist Council, which held in 72 AD in Kashmir under the Kushana ruler Kanishka. He was also a very powerful ruler, and it is said that he took control of the entire Silk Route. Silk Route was a route from China to Central Asia, and it was a very prosperous and flourishing trade route. और उसके बाद हुई थी 5th बुद्धिस्ट काउंसिल. सो 5th बुद्धिस्ट काउंसिल काफी टाइम बाद हुई थी. इट हैपेंड इन 1871. So if you see 1800 years का gap था, and this happened in Yangon, Myanmar. 5th Buddhist Council in order to formalize and put together all the teachings of Buddha and give a formal way to the Buddhism religion. And उसके बाद जो last Buddhist Council थी वो 6th Buddhist Council थी, and it was held in 1954 in Yangon, Myanmar. 5th and 6th दोनों ही Buddhist Councils म्यांमार में हुई थी 1954 में. Now the next question was, who wrote Arthashastra? I mean, what was the book that Chanakya wrote? So Chanakya wrote Arthashastra. Arthashastra was not only a great literature for economy, it was also a book of military strategy, administration, and about the rules of society. Then the next question was कि सत्यमेव जयते कौन से उपनिषद से लिया गया है? तो उपनिषद्स were, as we know, later Vedic texts, and they reflected the ideas of the existing societies and the rules the society should abide by. So Satyamev Jayate, it was taken from Mundaka Upanishad. And उसके बाद I asked that बाणभट्ट का एक और important वर्क कौन था? तो सबसे पहले बाणभट्ट कौन थे? बाणभट्ट was a poet in the king Harshvardhana's court, and his important works one was Harsh Charitra, which was the biography of king Harshvardhana, and the other was Kadambari, which he wrote. It is a very famous work of Baणभट्ट. So moving forward, today we will learn about Sangam period. Sangam period was dominated by Sangam literature, जो कि उसका source है, हमें उसी के बारे में वहीं से पता चलता है. So it is stretched from 3rd century BC to 3rd century AD. That is mainly 600 years का था ये पूरा एरा, और इस टाइम में लिटरेचर, आर्ट और इन सबको बहुत ही बढ़ावा मिला. एंड संगम पीरियड बेसिकली साउथ इंडियन किंग्स जो थे इंडिया के, उनके बारे में संगम लिटरेचर में बात है. सो पहले तो 3 सबसे इंपॉर्टेंट किंगडम जो 3rd सेंचुरी बीसी से 3rd सेंचुरी एडी तक थी, वो थी चेरा, चोलास एंड पांड्यास. एंड उसके बाद पल्लवास, चालुक्यास एंड राष्ट्रकूटास आए थे जो 900 CE तक इन्होंने रूल किया था. सो मूविंग फॉरवर्ड, So, like as we said that Sangam period जो था 3rd century BC से 3rd century AD तक था. Basically Sangam literature dominated था और वही एक इसका source है. But of like source of account जो हमें जहाँ से मिला उसके बारे में information. But इसके अलावा मेगास्थनीज जो कि चंद्रगुप्त मौर्य के यहाँ सेल्यूकस जनरल ने भेजा था, ग्रीक एम्बेसडर था. So उसके अकाउंट में भी संगम एज के रूलर्स का है. और यहाँ पे मेनली वही 3 डायनेस्टीज प्रिवेल करती थी, चेरा, चोला एंड पांड्यास, एंड उसके बाद आई थी चालुक्यास, पल्लवास एंड राष्ट्रकूटास. So we'll be learning one by one about these dynasties, their kings and their like South India में सबसे ज्यादा इन kings ने architectural work वगैरह बहुत famous रहा है, literature and architecture, तो हम थोड़ा सा उसके बारे में भी पढ़ेंगे, monuments and all. So पहले first of all चेराज. चेराज वंजी, इनके कैपिटल क्या था, वंजी, और इनके यहाँ पे सी पोर्ट्स, तो ये एक क्वेश्चन आ सकता है कि वंजी कहाँ की कैपिटल थी, तो ये चेरा की थी कैपिटल. और इनके इंपॉर्टेंट सी पोर्ट्स, ये भी क्वेश्चंस आते रहते हैं. AFCAT इज नोन फॉर आस्किंग क्वेश्चंस लाइक दिस कि व्हाट वर द पोर्ट्स. लाइक लास्ट ईयर दे आस्क्ड वन क्वेश्चन अबाउट व्हिच वर द लीडिंग नेवल पावर इन medieval period. So like that only, this Mussoorie and Tondi, they were the important seaports. They may ask questions like this. Now emblem, इनका क्या था, चेरास का emblem था bow and arrow. And इनके यहाँ जो मतलब the information about the Chera kings we get from Pugalur inscriptions. So who was the prominent ruler? Sengutu I, 2nd century CE में. CE means common era. After like 0, we are, for example, we are in 2021 CE. So like that, 2nd century CE, he was prominent ruler of Chera dynasty. And the military achievement of Senguvattam has been recorded in the epic Silapathikaram. Now this epic, just note it down because the question may come up like this, that Silapathikaram talks about which kingdoms or which period. So Chera period, और चेरा के टाइम पे कौन सा इंपॉर्टेंट एक लिटरेचर था. सो सिलापतिकरम, which talks about his Himalayan expedition where he vanquished many rulers from North India. Like Chera rulers usually तो modern day केरला जो है उसी रीजन में रेन करते थे, पर if you see ये they even came, they did an Himalayan expedition or they vanquished, they destroyed, they fought with many rulers from northern India as well. And then Senguttavan, he was a very prominent king, so he introduced Patini cult or the worship of Kannagi as the idol wife. So again this might be asked that who introduced the Patini cult, or what was the cult introduced by Senguttavan. And he was also the first one to send an ambassador to China from South India. Now since India-China relations, they are in talks right these days a lot. So this question might come, which ruler was the first to send an ambassador to China from South India. So Chera ruler Senguttavan, he was the first one. Moving ahead, bow and arrow, this is the insignia of Cheras. Now the other important kingdom was Chola Kingdom. So Chola Kingdom, it was a Sangam period. It usually was on the northern side of Tamil Nadu, that is districts like Tiruchirappalli, Tiruvarur, Nagapattinam, Ariyalur, Perambalur, Pudukottai district, Tanjavur district in Tamil Nadu, and Karaikal district. पहले इनकी capital was Uraiyur. So again this is an important, mark this important because Uraiyur, and later it was shifted to Puhar. So a question might come कि पहले कौन सा था, बाद में कौन सा हुआ, और इन दोनों का भी एक कि कैपिटल किसकी थी. तो उरायूर या पुहार, जिसको पूम पुहार भी बोलते हैं, इट वाज द कैपिटल ऑफ चोला. देन हु वाज एन इम्पोर्टेंट किंग, प्रोमिनेंट किंग, जैसे चेरास का सेरुंगवट्टीनम था, वैसे ही करिकला वाज एन प्रोमिनेंट किंग ऑफ संगम चोला डायनेस्टी, और इनका इंसिग्निया वाज अ टाइगर. नाउ इनके टाइम की एक इम्पोर्टेंट बुक क्या थी, पत्तिना पलाई, pardon my pronunciation. So Pattina Palai, written by Kadiyalur Urutiranganaran, depicts his life as well as his military achievements. So Pattina Palai talks about Chola period. So this is the insignia of Cholas. It is a tiger. And various Sangam poems mention the battle of Venni. तो एक क्वेश्चन ये हो सकता है कि battle of Venni कहाँ, मतलब किसके बीच हुई थी. तो it happened between, it was an alliance of Cheras and Pandyas, the other two prominent kingdom, and 11 smaller chieftains, and Cholas fought them and they defeated this whole massive alliance of Cheras, Pandyas and 11 smaller chieftains. Then another battle which was fought by Karikala was Vahai Parandalai. So, like Karikala, he was a very prominent king and he was an able administrator. So, इसके reign में trade and commerce काफी prosper किया था. And he also came up with new practices, irrigation tanks बनाए थे near river Kaveri to make available water for reclaimed land from the forest for farming. So he used methods like irrigation tanks and everything to ensure that farming prospered in his reign. Now, the third important rulers of Sangam age were Pandyas. So the Pandyas, they reigned over the southern region of the modern day Tamil Nadu. And what was their capital? Madurai. Madurai is an important city even nowadays. So Madurai, it was the capital of Pandyas. And their emblem was the carp. Their emblem was, carp means twin fish flag of Pandyas. They were an important naval power. We'll learn about them. So, who was king? Important king? King Nedun Chelian. He was also called Arappadai Kadantha Nedun Chelian. He was an important king, and there was a seaport called Korkai, whose socio-economic condition, Korkai ki socio-economic condition was mentioned in Madurai Kanji. So Madurai Kanji is an important epic for Pandyas, which talks about the Pandya rule, which was written by Manguri Maruthanar. So now, after the decline of Cheras, Cholas, and Pandyas in later 3rd century, new kingdoms emerged, and another important prominent ones were Pallavas. So Pallavas, they were known as natives of Tondai Mandalam. There are many stories about their origin, but that is not the topic of our discussion. We will be focusing ourselves on what they did. So Pallavas, they emerged as a power in 4th century AD, and they sustained a rule of about 500 years. This is a long time period, and yes, they ruled very efficiently. They built many temples, they built great cities, centers of learning. They focused on education, temples, sculptures, and they also influenced a large part of Southeast Asian culture. Now, who was their greatest ruler? So, Mahendra Varman I is considered to be the greatest ruler of the Pallavas. His reign was marked by many architectural and literary achievements, which would lay the foundation of future art and culture of South India. We know कि आज के time में South India is very rich in heritage, culture and art. So it is said that Mahendra Varman was the king जिसके time पे इसकी शुरुआत हुई थी. He was the one जिसने काफी बड़े cities बनाए, centers of learning, temples and sculptures वगैरह बनाए थे. सो कांचीपुरम, इनकी कैपिटल क्या थी? पल्लवास की कैपिटल थी कांचीपुरम. सो इनका बहुत ही प्रोमिनेंट स्ट्रक्चर्स हैं आज के टाइम में भी. शोर टेम्पल एट महाबलीपुरम एंड कांची कैलासनाथर टेम्पल एट कांचीपुरम, दे आर द फेमस वंस that were constructed during the reign of my Pallavas. So again, the question might be asked कि शोर टेम्पल और कांची कैलासनाथर टेम्पल ये कौन से किंग्स ने बनवाई थी? तो दिस इज अ पल्लवा किंग, and we need not learn more like remember the names of all Pallava kings, but yeah, Mahendra Varman, he was one important Pallava ruler. So this is Shore Temple at Mahabalipuram. See, look at the architecture, the intricate designs and everything. It was rich at that period of time when there was not that much of technology. So we can assume that these kings or these people, their kingdoms, they possessed great deal of knowledge of architecture and technology. They were able to build structures like this जो आज तक sustain कर रहे हैं, and with intricate designs and everything. This is the Kanchi Kailasnatha temple. Look at the designs, they are very intricate carvings in the rock. The next important power, they were Chalukyas. Now there were three Chalukyas, three kind of Chalukyas. For one were Badami Chalukyas, who they were the earliest Chalukyas, and their capital was Badami, which is Vatapi in Karnataka, and they ruled from mid 6th century, and their power declined after their greatest king Pulakeshin II in 642 AD. Now the second one were Eastern Chalukyas. So Eastern Chalukyas, they emerged after the death of Pulakeshin II, and Inca capital was Eastern in Vengi, at Vengi in Eastern Deccan, and they ruled till 11th century. And then there were Western Chalukyas, and they were the descendants of the Badami Chalukyas, and they emerged in the late 10th century and ruled from Kalyani, modern day Vasau Kanyalanam. Now, who was the first ruler of Chalukyas? So, Jaisamha, he was the first ruler of Chalukyas. So, there were important kings. One was Pulakeshin II. He founded the empire with his capital at Vatapi, and he was the one who performed the Aswamedha Yajna. So, guys, we have learnt about Aswamedha Yajna. So, tomorrow I'll be interested in knowing from you guys that what is Aswamedh Yajna, and I'll reveal the answer in the next slide. The second one is Pulakeshin II, who ruled from 609 AD to 642 AD, and he was one of the greatest Chalukya kings. So what he did, he extended the Chalukya rule to most part of the Deccan. So Chalukyas, they had great maritime power and they also had a well organized army, and they ensured that there were developments in Kannada and Telugu literature. So they were the ones in whose reign the art and architecture it flourished a lot. So they built cave temples, जिसमें both religious and secular themes were there, and their temples, they had beautiful mural paintings also. We'll see their temples in the next slides. So the temples under the Chalukyas, they are good example of Vesarai style of architecture. And this is also called the Deccan style or Karnataka Dravida or Chalukyan style. It is combination of Dravida and Nagara style. Now, their important architectural examples by them were Aihole temples, Ladghan temple, that is Surya temple, Durga temple, Huchi Malligudi temple, Jain temple at Meguti by Ravi Kirti. There are 70 temples in Aihole, and which were constructed by Chalukyas. Then the famous Badami temples, they were also constructed by Chalukyas. And Pattadakkal, which is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. We'll learn about more UNESCO World Heritage Sites in a separate section. So Pattadakkal, it was also constructed by Chalukyas. There are 10 temples here, 4 in Nagar style and 6 in Dravid style. Virupaksha temple and Sangameshwara temple are in Dravida style, and Prapanatha temple is in Nagara style. So one more question of the day is that what were these styles of the temple, Dravida style and Nagara style of temple? So this is an Aihole temples. There are 70 temples. And then Badami temples. Badami caves are famous tourist sites also. They were constructed by Chalukyas. So there might be questions that there was a question in CDS that Badami temples were constructed by whom? So it was constructed by Chalukyas. Now the third important power after Pallavas and Chalukyas were Rashtrakutas. So Rashtrakutas considered themselves the descendants of Satyaki. So one more question arises for you, that who was Satyaki? So Dantivarman or Danti Durga, he was the founder of Rashtrakutas, and the important kings during the Rashtrakutas, they were Krishna I, who succeeded Danti Durga, and he was the one who conquered the territories that were still under Chalukyas. So he also occupied the Konkan plain. And then the other important king was Amogh. He was the greatest king actually of the Rashtratuka dynasty, and he was son of Govinda III. So there will be a question that Amogh was from which dynasty. So this will be Rashtrakutas. Now Amogh, he set up a new capital at Manyakheta, which is now Malkhed in Karnataka state, and Baroj became the best part of kingdom during his reign. So Amogh, like other South Indian kings, he was also a great patron of education and literature. He was a great lover of education and literature. So this is the Rashtrakuta Empire. If you look closely into this, it stretched so far, like Manyakheta is here. and it stretched as far as at Kannauj in Uttar Pradesh. So it covered almost all of the southern India, the few territories of Cheras and Pandyas. Rashtrakuta Empire. This was a vast empire. The art and architecture during the Rashtrakutas were famous, and as Amog Varsha, he was also a great king. So they are also very famous tourist sites. Ellora and Elephanta caves, they were built by Krishna. So there might be a question that कौन से king ने बनवाई थी? तो Krishna he was, and what dynasty he was from? So that will be Rashtrakuta dynasty. So guys, that will be it. So today's question are, what were the Nagara and Dravida style of architecture, and who was Satyaki? So we will be giving the answers in the next session. Till then, stay tuned and keep working hard. And remember guys, revising the notes every day and also making your own short notes with your smart learning techniques will help you in retaining the content earlier and retaining the content for a longer period of time, which will help you in scoring more and more marks for the upcoming AFCAT examination. So keep preparing and keep learning, and also keep following the Trishul Defense Academy YouTube channel. Jai Hind. Thank you.
जहां बनते हैं देश के गौरव, इंडिया का एकमात्र ऐसा कोचिंग इंस्टीट्यूट जहां कैडेट्स को ट्रेन किया जाता है आने वाले डिफेंस एग्जाम के अनुसार। अगर आपका भी सपना है भारतीय सेना में शामिल होकर देश की सेवा करने का, तो आज ही ज्वाइन करें त्रिशूल डिफेंस एकेडमी।